Welcome to this episode of the podcast. Partnerships are often the magic ingredient that can make your business explode. The right kind of partners can hold the keys to your ideal customer or a piece of knowledge or technology that you're just dreaming of having, but that it will take years on your own to create, if at all possible. So in my experience, companies that work seriously with sustainability, they tend to be able to attract some very interesting partnerships. Also, sometimes some that are way beyond their weight class. So therefore, I obviously wanted to explore the intersection between sustainability and partnerships in this season of the podcast. And I started looking around for a true expert in this field. And that led me to Dave Plunkett. He's the founder of the company with the lovely name Collaboration Junie. And I think it's pretty smart, Dave. It basically says it everything in you and what you are like. So that's really good. Dave is a musician and a football-loving dad of 3. He lives in the southwest in the UK, passionate about connecting with people, the things we love, and being excited by life, as you say it. I like that. He's developed hundreds of partnerships. So we're talking, again, another expert here with lots of experience. Grown your own membership organization to 2,000 plus members. And right now, you work mainly with SMEs, but previously you also worked with companies like Volvo. So you're not just experienced from small, but also the bigger part of it. Collaboration Junie is a fairly new company. It's been going on since 2020, and you help business owners tap into their inner tribal nature and get that high quality leads on a consistent basis through the word of mouth. And I think that for many people might sound like that's a really interesting recipe, because how could we get to just the word of mouth piece being so powerful? So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's hit into it. And if you could just start by letting us know a bit about how important do you see that partnerships are for success in today's business world?
I think it's everything. And I think it always has been. You mentioned in the intro a word I use quite a lot, which is tribal. As humans, there's this innate desire to want to connect and belong. And I would say it's not our natural way to be in competition. It's our natural way is to collaborate and work together. And I think it's society that's driven the more individualistic way of being than this connected one. And so I think embracing this partnership culture is essential. And if you think back to time and time before email, before even the written word, kind of word of mouth and connecting with people and spreading word that way was all we had to help us grow. Well, they wouldn't even, maybe not even class as businesses in those ways. So it's a natural way to be. And despite it being so powerful for most businesses, it is the area, whether it's referrals, word of mouth, partnerships, that's all in that same sphere. It's the area of their business that people spend the least amount of time putting a strategy behind. And I find that really, it's a really interesting one. And it's something that I'm certainly on a mission to change, because when this stuff works, the sum becomes far greater than the individual component parts. And that's why I get so excited about the work that I do. And I love seeing the impact, because it's not only an enjoyable way to work, but it's a much more impactful way to work as well.
So what you're saying is that this is really a business strategy that kind of connects with the, as to say, core of humans.
Yeah, I think so. Without wanting to sound too grandiose about it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's our natural way. That's
really interesting, because I sometimes say that when we talk about, I work a lot also on circular economy and this whole sort of approach of having that full circle approach and everything is part of a system. And I often say that that's just the modern equivalent of the success formula for mankind for like 99% of all time on Earth, right? Because until the last, 70, 80, something, 100 years ago, perhaps, everything came from the ground. We hadn't invented any synthetic materials or anything. So everything came from the ground, and we utilized it as much as we could, and then it went back to the ground. And that has been working for us for quite some time. And then over the last, as I say, perhaps just as little as 70 years, we completely abandoned that. And now it's time to sort of find back to it. And then, in the conversation here around how does companies that seriously engage in that, how does that work in terms of partnership? I just find it kind of interesting if those are two different sort of distinct ways of our human nature that we're trying to connect here.
And so I think you're right. I think brands that are looking to connect more with that traditional way of being, which is obviously the right thing to do, whereas that last 100 years got us both as a society and a planet. I appreciate preaching to the converted here, obviously. Yeah, absolutely ties in with a more traditional way of acting and being. So I think I've not thought of it that way before, but I think you're right, Jasper. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really well aligned.
That's interesting. Yeah. So let's just say that here we are as a business leader, one of our listeners, and they're thinking, I run this sustainable company, or we really push this agenda a lot. What does it take for them to attract the best kind of partnerships as such a sustainable company?
Okay. So what I would say on that thing around attracting the right partnerships, I actually think that's potentially the easy part. The difficult, not the difficult part, but the part that people sometimes don't realize how much to go into is actually leveraging those partnerships, actually making them work and getting results. And you need to have a proper strategy behind it. You need to think of, I have a 5-step framework. Dance is my kind of 5-step framework to all the things that you need to think about and do this thing, because they're called strategic partners for a reason, and you need a strategy behind them to be successful. And whether you're a business that's focused on sustainability or not, it's the exact same process you need to look at. It's just, if you are a brand with this sustainability at its core, then you have an advantage over your competition. You have an advantage over the other people that are in that space, because not only are you good at what you do, you've got this other piece of the puzzle that just adds even more, for the right partners, that adds even more weight behind what you're doing. So
that's great. Could you just unfold that dance framework you have? Because I'm sure a lot that are sitting, as you said, they might not today be putting enough effort into this. So it seems like this is the steps you need to take. Could you unfold them a bit, and then let us know also where do you think sustainability can fit in and add that sort of extra weight, if they're particular in some of them?
Yeah, I would love to. And let me just say that I may talk in terms of lead generation and bringing customers in, but my knowledge sharing experience is in helping other people get more leads and customers into their business. But the framework of my experience is more based on providing leads to big brands. So it works both ways, and the framework works both ways in terms of attracting people in, or potentially working with partners who can add services into yours. But it kicks off with D, which is discovery, which is all about who your ideal partners are, right? And it's really about understanding who those people are. And if we're talking kind of customer point, you talk about the circular economy. I talk a lot about value chains, which is, if you understand who your customer is, then very few businesses deliver an end-to-end solution. The customer has a thing that they want to solve, and we are just one piece of that puzzle. There's a very famous analogy about people aren't buying a drill, they're buying a hole in the wall, and they're not even doing that, they're buying the shelf, right? And it's understanding, where do you fit in that value chain? Because the people that come just before you in that value chain, they're your perfect partners, because you have a shared end goal for the customer, and those people that match your values and share what you want to do, they have a vested interest in introducing you, because you help deliver the end result that someone's come to them for. And so I call that a partner value proposition. It's about not talking in client language. So when you're speaking to potential partners, you're not talking about all the great things that you can do for their clients. You're talking about how you help them deliver the result that they want
makes
to
sense.
deliver. And it's a really subtle shift, but it makes a huge impact if you keep that at the core of all your partnership discussions and how you map out your program. That real focus on the value to the partner is the thing that really helps flick a switch.
So it's basically the what's in it for me question, but companies are used to having that for their clients, and they just need to shift it to the partners. But then it's basically the same way of doing it. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for brands who are in the sustainability space, they still need to focus on that. Their ideal partners are still going to be people where there is a practical thing that they do and they help with. The superpower is that when you've got this other purpose behind what you do, this sustainability angle, there's like a secondary driver, right? There's at its core, you help them deliver their core thing around the product service that they deliver. But if you can also help them with this other piece, because that's embedded within what you do, well, then that's your superpower. That propels you even further. And
why is that? Why is that? Why would a partner find that attractive?
Well, I think it happens in one of two ways, and that would be either because you're working with brands that are already along this journey, and so they actively want to work with people who are like them, right? Maybe they're a B Corp, maybe they're whatever it may be, but they are on this journey, and that's part of what they do. Maybe even there's some regulatory requirements depending on the sector and the space, all that stuff. The other choice that you potentially have is brands who want to be doing more in this space but aren't quite sure how, and they're not. And if you can come in and you help them on that journey, and actually you're part of the people that support them and how they do it,
of brand quality on sustainability out to that collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so that's that secondary piece. There's the practical element, and there's this piece here as well. And I would argue that that second category of people are probably where sustainable brands can offer the highest value, where they're going to where the brands that are going to value that the most. And you mentioned about partnering up right in your intro, which I love. The brands that I used to partner with, the head of department of the person some of the brands I worked with is probably earning more than my company turned over, right? But we were still a vital piece in their SME engagement strategy, right? Yes. And it's because we did something that they couldn't do, even though the size of it, we had the right audience, we could work in the right way. And I think that's the thing with these sustainable brands. You have something outside of your core thing. You have something that they can't quite do themselves potentially, and you should never ever underestimate that. Speaking to
I think it's interesting. I mean, thinking back to episode 2 where we talk about branding, and they all, Jeremy, who was guest there, says it really clearly that there's so much to be gained. Especially he sees a window of the next approximately 5 years, where if you are all in, it can really, really give you an advantage, right? And as you say here on that sort of superpower, as you call it, the secondary part of it is that the companies that either already are there but need to be really protective of their brand, so they cannot, if you already have a brand of being a sustainable company, you don't want to be seen with lesser. And if you're trying to get yourself in there, that could be a way to elevate your game, right? So I think it fits really nicely with the advice from Jeremy there. So
and I think the thing with a partnership strategy is it's not standalone. It has to tie in with your brand, with your customer services, with you. It kind of touches on a whole range of things.
Yeah. All right, that was the D. Let's get there's more to dancing than D.
Yeah, absolutely. More moves. So A is assembly, and this is one where I didn't think there was going to be a specific thing for sustainable brands, and I was like, oh yeah, there is. So assembly is all about behind the scenes systems and processes. Jasper. It doesn't win you new partners, but delivering a consistent level of service will keep you partners that maintains their trust. It's about how you structure your partnerships, around partnership agreements. It's how you track data. It's all that stuff that helps build trust. And people do this badly. Get this right, and it's also the thing that allows you to scale partnerships without it breaking you, essentially. And so it's absolutely vital to get right. One of the things that where I did think that actually it's just an extra note for the people in this space is what I talk a lot about, tracking where people are in customer journeys and prospects, so that because every time someone makes an introduction to you, they're not just giving you a lead or a contact, they are giving you a little bit of their reputation. And that's
correct.
all any of us have. And so you need to treat it with the right trust and respect, right? And part of that is understanding where those people are in your prospect and customer journey. So we talk a lot about tracking. But actually, if you're helping someone make a positive impact or reduce their impact, then anything you can do to track that for the person you're partnering with is going to hold immense value to them.
Yeah.
And so
I like that because, there's so much fuss going around at the moment in the business community around documentation and reporting, and the European Union's corporate CSRD corporate Sustainable Reporting Initiative. Sorry, CSRD. You always just use your abbreviation, right? That CSRD is rolling out, and everybody's just talking about it. But I find it interesting that here's actually an angle to how can I utilize all the effort that they will be doing on data for something more directly meaningful. Well, it can also be targeted in to that superpower of partnerships. So that was a good. I hadn't thought about that. That was a good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and you know what? Adding another layer on that, based on what you just said, Jasper, is if they're in that category of people who are on that journey, then you've already been through it. Then being able to kind of advise, if you're working closely with a partner and you're seeing things within their own systems and processes that you used to see in yourself, and you've done things differently, well, then that adds immense value. And part of true collaboration and partnerships is when they go outside of the normal scope. And that's where things really happen. That's where you form really, really tight relationships. So.
Yeah, makes sense. That as you grow closer, you actually start to be able to advise and support each other on more than just the original intent of the collaboration. That makes sense. All right. So that was D and A. What happens in N?
So N is nurturing. So A is the systems, and then N is the processes. And by processes, I mean communication processes. Communication is vital, right? We talked about tribal natures at the start, right? There is, particularly in the software space, there can be a tendency to over-automate partnerships. Oh, we don't need to talk to our partners because they get access to live information and AI-driven automation and all this stuff. And that's great. There are some things that within a partnership absolutely can be templated or automated, and I'm not against that. But let's not remember that at its core, there is a relationship here. So
it's people. People meeting people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a saying I use a lot, which is curiosity is the birthplace of opportunity. And if you're not having outside of the day-to-day conversations with your partners, then you won't find those other opportunities. I'm sure we've all had relationships before where they've talked about something they're doing with someone else, and you go, "Oh, I could have helped with that," and they go, "Oh, I didn't realise."
Yeah,
you're like, you do know because I've mentioned it before, and they've just kind of forgotten, right? And it's only by having these human conversations where you're genuinely curious about what's going on in their world, particularly in the sustainable space, where if they're on that kind of journey where you can go, "Oh, we can help with that," or "I know someone else that can help with that," and you just unearth more opportunity for everyone. You build tighter relationships. But also potentially what you do in that instance is by helping them with some of those activities, you're potentially opening up extra marketing channels for you. Like they could be doing things that you can support with that just gives you more profile as well, which is absolutely fine. It's one of those virtuous circles where everyone's benefiting, and it's lovely to do things for altruistic reasons, but there is absolutely no shame in gaining commercially or profile wise
of course not.
off the back end of that. If our intentions are pure and we're doing good things for the world, well then let's do as much of that.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I just got this, reminder or notion in my head when you said that it seems like we are, especially if you have a super stressed day or just have tons of stuff you need to do, which a lot of business leaders have on their plate, and this is kind of like, if you do the things you need to do, and then you're heading off to something else. Whereas what you're saying is, you just spend a few more minutes here, add a little more, think a little more, and that might open up tons of opportunities. But we are so used to just, okay, done, rush off to the next. Whereas, we're really missing out on tons of things.
And it's more enjoyable. It's not only profitable and the right use of time, it's just more enjoyable as well. And my answer to that, Jasper, is process. So everything I do is process behind the scenes, but very personal front of house. Right? So schedule strategic reviews with your partners in, so that it's not like, so you do the practical communications, you do the day-to-day stuff, actually schedule in these kind of review meetings where you get to do this. And if you're local enough, I know we live in a global economy these days, but if you are local enough, go for lunch, do whatever, like do nice things. It's about it being more personal. The other thing on the communication front, I think is really important, is about setting expectations. Right at the outset of a partnership, set expectations and document them, because it just means that if things aren't going well, awkward conversations are easier to have because you've got something to align it to. But it also means everyone's on the same page, because you can have a brilliant conversation, like really exciting, you're going to change the world and all that. But if you're 5% out in your thinking at this long-term thinking at the start, then over time that 5% gets kind of bigger and bigger and bigger if it goes unchecked, and suddenly you're in a position where.
But when do you do that? When do you throw that piece of paper on the table? Because I think it's also a fragile process in that beginning. So how far down the road, if you can say anything meaningful about this, but how far down the road before you get pen on paper?
Way earlier than most people do is the short answer.
Okay,
but I'd say before you sign or agree on the partnership. And it can feel really counterintuitive because you are excited, right? And that's why I always recommend taking it slow and steady at the start, kind of thing. There's the values piece first and foremost. Like, is there a need? Do we match in values? And then it's there. And then it's before you kind of sign off going, or as part of that process going, what's our long-term vision? Maybe it's joint ventures, more formal pieces. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're going to bring what you do in-house in 5 years' time. But that's fine. That doesn't mean you don't partner with them. You just would rather know that at outset than further down the line, right? Yeah. Then there's the kind of the core of what's going to happen day to day. And then the really important piece that lots of people don't do is the short term, what's happening right now. And that's about going, how do we get going? Like, what's the small thing that we can do, no matter what the big picture stuff is? What's the simple thing we can do to just get going? Because momentum's a very, very powerful thing. And so many great potential partnerships that I've either been a part of or witnessed have never even got going because planning out the big picture stuff has taken so long that something happens and it fizzles out. And you go, whereas if you just started doing,
run out of steam and energy in doing so.
Whereas if you're doing smaller things while building out the big picture, that doesn't tend to happen so much. So early is the answer.
It's kind of like, it reminds me of that sort of entrepreneurial approach also to product development and market development, sales and everything. It's kind of like it's small steps and then you're just redoing them a lot of time
Yeah.
rather than that sort of let's plan it all out, because you never know what's going to happen halfway anyway. So
yeah, exactly. The other
Yeah.
thing that's really powerful with that for people in the sustainability space is if you are working with brands who aren't there yet but are on that journey, the small thing lets you see if they really are as they say they are. Like sometimes people talk a good game, but when it comes down to it, they're not quite who they say they are. And so that just getting going also gives everyone a chance to see what a working relationship's gonna be like. Okay. So there's a two-pronged thing on that one.
Yeah. Okay. So is there more to the dance setup that we need to mention here? Obviously, you could talk about that for days, I'm imagining.
So C's connection, and this is the other one where I think there is a huge opportunity. So C connection is all about how do you help your partners connect you with their audience, right? Instead of just waiting for things to happen, giving them the support for it to happen. And I think this is where brands in the sustainability space have a huge opportunity, because if you link that back to that partner value proposition of why someone wants to work with you and not someone who does what you do but isn't in the sustainable space, if you offer right at the outset to help your partners communicate that extra value proposition around sustainability, if they don't know this stuff, it might seem easy to you, but that's because it's what you do, and it's not common sense, it's experience, it's your experience. And so if you can give your partners the benefit of your experience on how to communicate this sustainability piece done in the right way, don't underestimate the value that brings. Because we've all I'm sure you've seen it more than I have, Jasper, brands who get this communication bit wrong. And it just feels like they are jumping on a bandwagon, right? Like you don't quite believe it. And
that piece gets even, basically growing by the day, because everybody, there's this increasing notion that we need to do things differently. Because we all experience this more and more wicked weather systems, for instance, around us. And then we also get bombarded with ads all the time, and we get better and better just looking through all of that clutter and seeing what's going on behind it, right? And I think these two things combined with companies just jumping on it as, hey, we are also green, we are whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you just no, you're not. You might do this on your, great for you that you have changed something in your packaging, but your core product is still crap. So I absolutely agree that you can probably bring a lot of value there, and then it might be important to remember that experience that you've gained over years are probably high value experience that you can deliver and pass on as part of growing and nurturing that partnership.
Our own experience, I think, is the bit that we least value, and particularly if people are making things as a physical product. If you're in the service business, like we are, then there's a kind of an understanding that our experience is our knowledge, is our value. I think where you have physical product, it's much more common to undervalue the level of your knowledge and experience. And if
that makes sense,
if your listeners take anything in that space, take anything from today outside of that part of the value proposition, it would be that piece, like not undervaluing your experience. So.
Great. All right. Is there more to the dance that we need to bring?
Final piece is in for engagement. How do you go out there and get partners? Now, I said I think that's the easy bit, right?
Yeah.
And it's because typically it is. And the way that I suggest most people, if they're starting their partner journey to get more partners, is look at the people that are already in your network or once removed, right? Look for introductions to the good partners. Most people have a network and have a network who has a network. And the great thing about asking for referrals to partners is if you've got that value proposition right, then there's not a pitch involved. You're not saying, can you introduce me to this person so I can sell to them? You're saying, can you introduce me to this person because there's this brilliant joint opportunity, right? Because you should never have to sell a partnership. If you are, then you've got your value proposition wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's about you might have to lead the conversation because you're the one with this partnership in mind, but it shouldn't feel like you're selling. The other person should be buying in and getting more
Yeah.
excited as you converse, right? So it's looking at introductions from your existing partners, your existing suppliers, your communities. And I think in the sustainability space, there's whole bunches of communities, right? Who are, there's an additional superpower again, where not only will people like the fact that there's a strong practical value proposition, the fact that there's this other cause that people believe in and want to belong to means they're going to be even happier to help you spread the word.
And you're right, because we are sort of in the same boat here, right? We are all fighting and pushing every day to change the world. So if somebody comes along and asks me, somebody that I trust, as you say, part of my network, and I know is doing good stuff, could you help me introduce me to this, because I want to help them move the world a better place? Obviously we want to help, right? So that makes sense, that it's probably even easier amongst sort of peers in the community.
Yeah, it's not a new strategy.
No.
It's your strategy.
It's the oldest one, as you said.
Yeah, it goes right back to that belonging and that wanting to support. I think where sustainable brands and that strategy builds out as you have more partners, you get social proof, and then your social proof becomes a trust element. Where I think brands with sustainability at their core can probably shortcut to more direct outreach slightly quicker as well, though, because there is this extra purpose. So if there are people out there talking about going on this journey or wanting to do more in this space, then there's an extra angle that sustainable brands have that their more traditional counterparts, for want of a better word, don't. So you can probably shortcut some of that direct stuff a little bit more because of that extra angle. So the strategy is the same. It's just there's all along the way, there's these things that where you can, and it's back to that thing of not undervaluing some of the things that you do. Remembering that, yes, there's this core reason why someone wants to partner with you, which is delivering a better end result for the customer. But this really strong secondary value proposition around being a sustainable brand, for the partners that's important to, you can add your experience and what you do and your credibility, adds so much value.
So let me just recap here, because if we should try to sum this up very briefly, what you say is that partnerships are essential for success today, and it can really elevate your game. And if you are a force for good company or a sustainable brand, or however you want to frame this, it really gives you superpowers to manage to do this, because you can add more value besides the specific knowledge you have. You also bring in this element that so many companies are looking for. Is that kind of a fair, really quick summary of the opening here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps you attract partners quicker and easier and potentially bigger. It helps you engage with them. It helps you add more value, which means ultimately you can scale the strategy way more. So yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Do you have an example or two of a company? I mean, especially like that part where you say sometimes you can really go above what you're sort of entitled to, because we're the same size. Do you have any experience or examples of companies where you say, here was a smaller player that managed to attract and partner with somebody significantly bigger that you might normally think, this is out of my league? Would you happen to have an example of that?
Yes.
In your sort of
specifically in the sustainable space?
Well, if you have, and if not.
Right. Okay. So, a sustainable one may drop into my mind afterwards, but there's a couple, so when we were partnering, as I mentioned, we were always partnering up, but it's because we had access to the SME market. We knew how to speak to them. We could work agile. And so that was of huge value to brands. Spotify, when Spotify were very first starting, they did a deal with Uber to be in their cabs and link up. And it, I think it kind of quadrupled their user base or something. There's an insane stat around it, but it's because Uber wanted to do something. They were still a challenger brand. They were just ahead of them on the journey significantly. During COVID, I know there were tons of smaller research people that were doing, and it's that agility. Often the common theme in small brands partnering up is innovation or agility. They're the real kind of they're the real key aspects that often with bigger brands with bigger reaches, they've lost that speed and that aim, that ability
Makes
to
a lot
do
of
that.
sense.
And I think they're the key components. I
Yeah.
think of how you partner up.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and that having that, that product that can fit in. I remember, I don't know if you would call it a specific partnership or a new client, but somewhere in that space. But I remember a Danish company that do textiles, and it's called Gabriel, and they at some point they got an opportunity to be, actually Boeing was reaching out to them, right? And we are talking, an SME in Denmark, and Boeing reaches out. But the thing is that they had this cradle to cradle certified textile that has no negative off gassing.
Wow.
And as you know, indoor air quality in planes is a big issue. And they've heard about this. So, could you come over and tell us what you could do? We might be interested in using your textiles in all of our flights going forward, right? So they ended up becoming a supplier to them.
Wow.
But it's kind of like, you wouldn't even get it into your mind to try to pitch yourself to Boeing, right? If you're a Danish SME, you wouldn't probably think that I'm gonna knock on this door. That's probably gonna work for me, right?
Yeah.
But when you get a call,
yeah,
would you like to come? That's a different story, right?
But I suppose my counter to that would be, imagine if there were two other airlines that were also thinking the same, and if they'd just made an inquiry, then maybe then who knows, right?
Yeah.
So there is that thing of we shouldn't underestimate.
No,
we all do it. We all do it.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, doesn't it? So
yeah, absolutely right.
I had a similar note to that. I had a business partner in my membership organization who used to do event organizing, and it was just him and one other person at the time, and they got a contract to run all of Orange's Christmas parties across the UK, right? So huge, the telephony provider, right? So massive contract, way bigger than a company of their size should have been able to get. And people used to ask him how he got it, did he do this? And he said he pushed the button on their website that says, "Do you want to work with Orange?" and then wrote a good proposal. Simple. There was no magic behind it. It was just being ready to take the opportunity. And I think there's I think there's something behind that.
Showing up is halfway there, right?
And I think that's true with partnerships. Kind of linking it back. Kind of don't be afraid to reach out to where you know that you can add value and serve a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have a route into them. Don't be afraid of making that outreach, because you never know what's going to happen.
No. And I think you're right, and that's a really crucial point. I think is that, if you see, and again, that's the whole starting point, as you also say in your model, it's having that value proposition that's meaningful. But say you are looking at a company that are significantly bigger than you, and you can somehow see that they struggle with something you can help them with. Well, by all means, they would love a call because they're probably trying to figure out, how the heck do we deal with this, right? And if somebody comes knocking and say, "Well, I have an idea. Should we have a talk?" Well, quite obviously you should.
There's a lot to
and even more so, as you say, if it then comes with that it's a company that's, let's just say, take a case like IKEA, right? That says that by 2030 we want to have all our products either, being this fits in this circular economy thinking, and all products should be either recyclable, recycled, or made of recycled material, or compostable materials. An outrageously huge challenge for a company their size. And they step up every time the CEO has a chance and talk about this. So how do you fuel such a giant journey? Well, you fuel it by keep being able to introduce new ways that fits and builds another small step of this almost endless journey for a company that size, right? So if you have anything to offer that fits in their product portfolio, say, well, I can be your next story in keeping your bigger picture story alive and keeping you being a trustworthy company going out saying we are ending here in now just 6 years time, right? Christmas 6 times, awful close. So I think you're right that on sustainability right now, there's a lot of companies that are promising big and at the right size, big, so big that you haven't got a clue how to get there.
Yeah.
But that's why they are needing and longing for all the help they can possibly get.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's really good. Okay. There are, of course, different ways where you can position yourself and different things you can bring to the table as a valuable partner. And of course, the core thing, as you said, is whatever it is you do. But then you said, sustainability is a bit of a superpower to add there. I'm guessing there's other things you could have with you apart from your core offering. But how would you sort of position I guess I'm asking how strong a superpower is engaging in sustainability seriously compared to other things you could choose to do that will grow your value as a partner?
So it's not an either or piece here, I don't think, Jasper. I think the key is
Obviously,
it comes back to who the ideal partner is. If your ideal partner is the person that really values the sustainable piece, then they're the right people for you. There might be, because there could be someone else who does what you do, and their superpower is they're really good at another tangent, and their ideal partner is someone who values that more than the sustainable piece. And so,
there's something for everybody, actually.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And the key here is about adding value in a way that adds value to everyone that's within that ecosystem, because the partner that matches up with you and your kind of passion, your extra piece, they're likely to be attracting customers where that's important to them as well, right? And I think that's the thing, is that it's not about being in competition with other people. It's about just where there's a right match, your thing will work really well. And all the other things that you can provide in a partnership outside of your core offering all come down to the same thing. And that's just your own experience, your own brand, your own, just the around the edge stuff. And it's about, I go back to that word of being curious again. It's about asking, how can I help? Right? Like, what can we do?
It's interesting, right? It's because it sounds pretty simple, basically. I mean, not your framework, all of that, but again, the approach, and it's reconnecting with that original part of who we are. But let's just say, for the audience here, if you could sort of here towards the end, I think that, as you said, the starting point is that value proposition. What are a couple of questions to ask yourself if you are to say, okay, let me start to create a partnership value proposition? What are a couple of questions that would be good to reflect upon?
Yeah. Okay. So, from a practical sense, if you've got some chosen partners in mind, I would do a list of all the value that you deliver to their client, and then or the end user, and then ask yourself the question, and why is that important to them? And why is that important to them? And you when you've got that down, look at that, whatever you've written down, and go, and why is that important? And it will go to a ridiculous, but like you'll get to the more emotional, values-driven piece, which you need to mix with the practical output as well. But there is if you can connect at that level, it really works. And then from a broader partnership piece and a collaborative mindset, and I think this works in all walks of life, Jasper, not just in business. It's about asking yourself a question before you do something around why you're doing it, and is it in everyone's interest? And like, we can't be completely altruistic, right? And for a lot of us, the best way the best way for me to help as many people as possible is to be wildly successful myself, right? And so there is that, we have to keep that hat on, but it's just being aware of, is it for the greater good kind of thing, like, and just being very listening to our gut. So that kind of there's the practical thing around a value proposition, and then when that relates into the kind of day-to-day activities, it's just about keeping that question in mind.
Yeah, I think that also points again to the leadership role and that whole sort of mindset and how do you practice leadership, right? Because again, here there's obviously a system and some things you need to have in place, but at the end of the day, it also comes down to this curiosity piece and carry that why and want to do something meaningful. Add value, right? Coming from a place of value rather than, I have a problem, can you fix it for me?
It's very much a value driven system. That's where the virtuous circle comes. No one's missing out there, and everyone's intent on delivering value, and that's when partnerships, the real magic happens, and that's what's so exciting about them.
Amazing. Okay, I have a question that I often ask here in this season of the podcast, and I know it's not completely down your alley, but it does position partnerships in it. So from your chair, with all the experience you have, how do you think that the sustainable businesses, what role do they play? What role does sustainability play in creating the winners in the business world of tomorrow?
So I think the sustainable brands that will create the biggest impact in doing this are the ones that understand and get their messaging right, whether that's direct or in partnerships, between their out and out commercial benefits and then the sustainable things on the side. I think it's not enough to just be a sustainable brand. You need to have a strong organization at its core as well. And those that get that piece right will be everything, because yes, there's legislation coming through and there's all those other things that will change. But no matter what your views on it, and that's another podcast for another time, we still live in a capitalist, right? We still lived in a largely capitalist economy, right? And without wanting to get too much on a soapbox, trying to just ignore that is kind of futile. You have to work within the parameters that we're in, and the ones that understand it and can play that game while sticking to their morals and their values will be the ones that can really make a game-changing impact. For me. I'm not sure if I answered that right, but
well, I think it's not a question that you can answer in a right or wrong way. So I think it's a nice way to end it. So before I thank you for showing up here, I just want to ask if people feel like this was kind of interesting, where can they connect with you, and are there any places they can go and understand the dance framework better? Or I know you also run sometimes run some workshops or anything. Is there any way where absolutely. If I want more of Dave, how do I get it?
Yeah. So the two easiest ways are to I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Dave Plunkett. There's not that many Dave Plunketts. Certainly only one Dave Plunkett, Collaboration Junie, and also collaborationjunie.com. And I run a monthly free online workshop. And there's a bunch of other content. I'm quite giving in my content because why not? Let's do exactly. Let's add as much value as we can. So
it seems to fit really well with what you've been saying. So I would definitely recommend your listeners to go out and check it out. And do connect with Dave if you feel like this was kind of interesting. Perhaps I need to know a little bit more, or need to have a chat with Dave on how can I elevate my game a bit. So Dave, thank you so much for taking time to come and share some of all your insights and experience. It's been really valuable. It's a pleasure, not least to have a conversation with you.
It's been an absolute delight. Thanks for having me on. Been amazing.
Perfect. And to listeners, thank you for listening in. And if you know just one person that you think could benefit from some of the insight that they've been sharing here today, then please forward this podcast to just one person and help us spread the word even further. Thank you so much, and see you in another episode.